How do you deal with microaggressions in your workplace? And is it possible that once you've gone from pet to threat, is it possible to get out of that dynamic? Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist, and I've counseled many people on this, as well as I've done a lot of corporate consulting on this very topic. But I have a commenter here who says, do you think it's possible to play the game of pet to threat and come out on the other side? So first of all, pet to threat isn't a game. It's more of a phenomenon in where where a black person, and in many cases black women, the supervisor is very complimentary to that person, and this is specifically a phenomenon for black people. So I've seen it used incorrectly, but it's a phenomenon that was created for the phenomenon that black people experience in a corporate workspace. And so you start out being your supervisor's pet, so to speak. They're highly gratuitous, complimentary to you. They love your work. They love you, and then at some point during the work dynamic, at some point during the work, the dynamic shifts, and now you're being met with animosity. You can't do anything right. Your supervisor can become very stoic or standoffish with you, and so that is what is happening. And with microaggression, you can have different types of microaggressions, but let's start out with the pet to threat phenomenon. In my experience, when you have become a pet to threat, that is not a dynamic that you can change. And usually it's not just you and the supervisor at that point. A lot of times your supervisor has now taken their disdain for you on up to leadership. So now that's, now the CEO or their supervisor and everybody else knows about it. And so you essentially have a target on your back. You have now become a threat to the supervisor and therefore a threat to the organization. From how they're looking at it, not necessarily a real threat. And a lot of times when they're viewing you that way, they want you gone. And so they're going to start keeping score of minor infractions and things like that to get you on up out of there. Things that they don't really look at for anybody else. Like, let's say you come in 5 minutes late. Everybody else comes in 5, 10, 20 minutes late. It's no big deal. But for you, you're now getting written up for it. And now you're getting put on a PIP. And so now if you even come in 1 minute late or you go to the bathroom, all these kind of things, right? Things that they would never do for other people now becomes evidence and is weaponized against you. And that is not a dynamic that usually you can overturn because they're going to make it their business to stay on you, and there is nothing that you can do right. And a lot of times what they do is they invite other people in to be like a watchdog over you, report back, critique you, say that they have bad experiences with you, and they're not even looking for evidence to support that. They're not trying to problem solve that. They're going to take these people at their word. So even if I'm just making up stuff about you at some point, I'm more likely to be taken at my word versus you are. And there's nothing that you could do about that. And so they're devising a plan to get you. And if they got to do some psychological harm on the way, then so be it. They don't really care. So unless your organization somehow goes through a massive restructuring and all of leadership that is aware of you being a problem is gone, chances are not in your favor that this is going to just iron itself out. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that it did magically iron itself out, and suddenly that same supervisor that had all this animosity for you is now wanting to be sweet to you and work things out. Is that really a dynamic that you can trust? Is that a dynamic that you really want to partake in? Because as surely as you've gone up, you've already had the proof that you can certainly come down. Is that something that you really want to stay in longer than necessary? And my answer would always be no. You have to believe that you deserve better than that. There's also, in many cases, something better for you out there. In the case that there isn't, of course, that people got to do what they got to do. But I often find that a lot of people say that there isn't, but they haven't done their due diligence to actually find something. They want something to complain about, or they want to give up and be helpless. Not all the time, but a lot of times. And I'll ask people, hey, have you looked for something else? Have you started to explore your, no, I'm not. I'm just going to see how it works out. Folks need to learn how to go to where they're wanted and where they're happiest, and hopefully can make a little bit of money and have better benefits along the way. And again, I understand the times that we're in, so do your due diligence with that, but don't become complacent in thinking that this will just iron itself out, or this is just a supervisor problem. There are many people that find themselves in a hostile work environment, and again, you're spending 40, 50 hours, maybe sometimes even more than that in a workplace, and where there's a level of hostility. There can be emotional turmoil going on there. There can also be a lot of times a lot of people who find themselves in the pet to threat dynamic. They're usually getting labor dumped on them at an insane amount and an insane rate. And so they're getting more of the workload dumped on them. And because they're so worried about keeping their job and worried about, not getting into trouble, they're usually killing themselves trying to work harder to prove themselves and their worth so that they can stay at a job who does not give a damn and does not want you there. So you want to be careful with that. And then also too, it depends on, other things that you need to be considering as your career field. Like for me in psychology, there's probably 3 degrees of separation between me and any other psychologist, black psychologist, in the United States. So there's a good chance that if I don't know somebody directly, there's a good chance that there's a third person that probably knows the both of us. And reputation, all that kind of stuff travels fast. You really have to be thinking about these things, and sometimes it's better to walk away than to burn your reputation, burn your wheels at a place that doesn't want you there. But some of you may want to ride that wave or may feel like you don't have that option. So you can certainly do that. You can allow your company to fire you, do what you need to do to, some people file for unemployment, file for their benefits, take stress leave and all those kind of things to try and manage that. I definitely recommend getting therapy or outside support when this kind of stuff happens. It can be psychologically damaging and harmful. So therapy, making sure your work-life balance, so your life outside of your work is very good. So making sure that you're hanging out with friends, participating in your hobbies and other things like that to offset this work stress if you feel like you have no other options. I may end up doing another separate video on microaggressions, but those are some of the things that I would recommend is, just take care of yourself first and foremost. Talk about it with a therapist and be, mindful, thoughtful, and strategic about how you want to do this thing. If you like what you hear, definitely subscribe to the newsletter, my podcast, linked in my bio. And I actually have 2 podcasts. I've been talking about A Date with Darkness, but I actually also have a corporate consulting podcast that I've had for a little bit too. And that's also linked in my bio as well. Thanks so much.